place any metallic objects in the tray. Thank you. Coming through!
Conker Live and Reloaded is one of the strangest games that ever hit the original Xbox, but it's also one of the most unforgettable. On the surface, it looks like a goofy cartoon platformer, but underneath, it's packed with sharp humor, crazy level variety, and some of the most surprising tone shifts I've ever seen in a game like this. One minute you're rolling a ball of dung up a hill to fight a crap boss, literally. The next you're storming the beach in a gritty war parody. And the multiplayer? That was a whole other game. Full classes, maps, tactics. It was its own world. This one's got history, and today we're opening the Oddities Room in the Game Vault to take a look back at Conker Live and Reloaded, and why it's still one of the most interesting games Rare ever made. Conker Live and Reloaded dropped on the original Xbox back in 2005, and it's one of the most unique cases of a remake I've probably ever seen. At its core, it's a full remake of Conker's Bad Fur Day, Rare's crude, chaotic platformer that originally launched on the Nintendo 64. But this version wasn't just a visual update. It overhauled the graphics, re-recorded the dialogue in higher quality, and added a full-blown third-person shooter multiplayer mode that I feel is way ahead of its time. This isn't just a side mode either. It had a ton of maps, classes, and online matchmaking, something I personally spent hundreds of hours on as a kid on Xbox Live. It's kind of wild to think about now, but Conker was basically two games in one. This cinematic R-rated cartoon adventure on one side, and a legit multiplayer shooter on the other. Now the game did catch some heat for censoring certain parts of the original script, which disappointed a lot of longtime fans. And yeah, there's no denying that the original's no-holds-barred tone took a bit of a hit. But even with that, Live and Reloaded is still one of my favorite remakes ever. The visual polish, the tighter controls, the added multiplayer, it gave the game more longevity, more reach, and to me, it still holds up. It also got added to the Xbox 360 backwards compatibility in 2006. It did have some bugs though, and later to Xbox One in 2018 with resolution boosts. So if you're curious, you can still play it today.
I say, little fella, you better get this fat-ass bitch off of my back pronto.
So before we get deeper into Conker and analyzing its themes and the different levels and stuff, what is Conker? The game opens with Conker as a king, miserable, alone, and drinking, before flashing back to explain how things went so wrong. It all starts after a night of heavy drinking, when Conker wakes up hungover in a strange land and just wants to get home to see his girlfriend, Barry. But instead of a simple walk back, he's pulled into a chaotic mess involving a mafia-run nightclub, a war between squirrels and Nazi-like teddy bears, a giant singing turd, and a mad scientist with a grudge. And meanwhile, the Panther King, who needs Conker to fix his broken table, sends thugs after him, and Barry gets kidnapped and forced into dancing at a club. And then later he eventually even gets roped into a bank heist. And that's really the general idea of the story. It's not that deep, but there's a lot of elements to it. So let's get into that. So Conker wakes up in the middle of a field after a long night of drinking, clearly hungover and disoriented. The world immediately feels offbeat and kind of quiet, but strange. Before you even start moving, you're introduced to a mechanic the game leans heavily on: context-sensitive pads. These trigger specific interactions like curing your hangover, which sets the tone for how the game blends its crude world with surprisingly tight gameplay systems.
What does that mean?
It means context sensitive.
You're then nudged towards your first task, finding a way forward through a locked area. It isn't complicated, but it introduces key mechanics like hovering and weapon use. Early on you get a frying pan to defend yourself, which becomes necessary when some of these weird creatures start walking towards you. There's a weird sense of hostility to the world already. Everything feels just a little too alive, and almost everything's ready to attack you. The area ends with a gargoyle blocking your path. You try your basic weapon, but it's not enough. Instead of backing off, Conker upgrades mid-scene, casually pulling out a nail-covered bat to handle the situation. It's not treated like a big moment, it's just the tone the game operates in. Things escalate, often without warning.
He missed the designer. No more surprises.
The next area brings a shift in pace. After learning the basics, the game now starts layering its strange side characters. You meet a distressed queen bee who's had her hive stolen by a group of wasps. It's the first real task that resembles a quest, and it serves to reinforce Conker's odd place in this world. He's not heroic, but he ends up solving problems anyways, usually for money. Always for money. Retrieving the hive means fighting more of these walking mines from earlier, but this time you're expected to handle them more efficiently. You've got to manage spacing and timing now, or you'll burn through health quickly. Once the hive's recovered and returned, the queen obliterates the wasps herself. Conker barely has to do anything. You just run, deliver, and get paid. It's one of the game's early reminders that violence often happens around you, not necessarily because of you.
Eat that, mother buzzer.
After that, you're funneled into a new area where Birdie appears, selling you the game's manual for $10. Naturally, you get the cash right back. It's another example of how Live and Reloaded plays with expectations. It sets up these microsystems that exist mostly to mock the idea of traditional mechanics.
Okay, suits me. Cash.
You're given a slingshot and told to shoot flying bugs to open the next path, but even this feels like a tongue-in-cheek tutorial rather than a serious challenge. At the top of the hill, you're offered two paths, and Conker explicitly avoids one of them because it, in his words, smells like poo. So naturally, we go the other way, for now. The Barnyard segment is really where it starts to lean into the grotesque. You meet Marvin the rat. You're tasked to overfeed him cheese until he explodes. And that's not metaphorical. You carry pieces one by one while they cry, until Marvin literally bursts from gluttony. The tone here isn't really comedy, it's discomfort. The fat shaming, the violence, the absurd dialogue, it's all dialed up to remind you this isn't your typical platformer. These aren't lessons, there's no moral. It's just ugly problems solved in ugly ways, and that's what makes it memorable. This part also shows how the game plays with player complicity. You're not just watching Marvin overeat, you're the one doing it. And that kind of participation shows up over and over again in Conker. You're never just an observer in its weirdness, so you're part of it. After Marvin's gone, you finally get inside the barn, only to be ambushed by a pitchfork named Frankie, egged on by a paint can and a brush. What starts as a boss fight ends in tragedy. The pitchfork fails, falls into despair, and tries to end it all. That might sound like comedy, but in Conker it plays differently. There's a weird, sad honesty to Frankie's moment, buried beneath the absurdity. It's another layer of this game's tone, one that blends discomfort, shock, and a hint of sincerity.
Oh, diddle damn! I's gonna be up here for some time.
Outside you meet the king bee, who's been kicked out of his hive for obsessing over a sunflower. You're then tasked with gathering a swarm of bees to tickle her into revealing her body. The game doesn't hide what it's doing here, it's sexual, on purpose, and kind of disturbing. You don't laugh at this moment, you kind of just sit with it. Because again, Conker isn't satire. It's not poking fun at platformers. It is one. It just chooses to explore taboo subjects instead of classic tropes. Back inside, the next few moments shift fully into action. You roast bats with a flamethrower, cut Frankie down from a rope, and ride him into battle against a massive hay monster.
This is gonna hurt.
Mechanically, this is one of the more fluid parts of the game, but it's also where the cartoon tone fully unravels into something more aggressive. You're setting things on fire, slamming into enemies, and watching them fall apart. There's still no real meaning behind it, just violence as a means to progress. And when the hay boss finally goes down, the whole floor collapses. You're dropped into a rising water chamber, where you scramble to shoot down live wires before they fry you. It's frantic, and it works. There's real tension here, even if the setup is bizarre. Conker wants you a little uncomfortable, and in this stretch, it earns that. Hey, if you're enjoying the video, hit that subscribe button. It'll help us keep building Jake's Save Room, one lost classic at a time. Every sub helps this game vault grow, and we've got a lot of weird, wild, and forgotten games on the way.
Yeah, there it is. Over there. Big ball of poo. Oh, thanks.
The payoff of the water puzzle is another anvil drop. Literally, you land in the bottom of a drained water tower and unlock a new gate, sending you into the next stage of the game. But before you leave, Conker hits you with one final reminder that this isn't your childhood platformer. You enter the moat, where the reward is money, but the cost is a new kind of enemy. Zombified dolls with creepy porcelain faces that chase you down. The tone here isn't played for laughs, it's straight up unsettling. And it's a hint of where things are going next. The game's about to get darker, stranger, and way more violent. But even now, it never breaks its identity. Conker keeps showing you that behind the cartoon look, it's building something else. A world where nothing feels sacred, and everything is up for grabs.
Oh, another wise guy. Come on, then.
Cool. I'm gonna have that gold card before you know it.
After all the Barnyard stuff, Conker heads into the area he avoided earlier. The one he said that smelled like poo. He wasn't wrong. What follows is one of the most infamous stretches in the game. With a gas mask strapped on, you wade through literal rivers of filth, swatting enemies and dodging piles of waste just to find yourself holding up a table inside a dung beetle hut. Welcome to the next tonal shift. The dung beetles ask you to fetch them some raw materials, and you're sent down a tunnel where even the game's own fart sounds feel like part of the environmental design. After a nasty fight through the tunnel and a rope climb straight into a pipe spewing sewage, you finally make it out, only to be greeted by a bull with a hatred for red. This whole area shifts from gross-out humor to full-on chaos. It revolves around prune juice, cows with digestive urgency, and you riding a bull to ram them. And yes, each successful ramming leads to a cow explosively clearing the field, leaving behind exactly what the dung beetles need. You repeat this a few times until you've got enough material for the next bizarre mechanic, rolling a giant ball of poo like a boulder down a path. It's slapstick mixed with scatological shock. But it's also another moment where the game leans into physics and terrain in a way that feels ahead of its time. You're not just triggering cutscenes, you're steering the mechanics toward chaos. The moment you roll that ball off a cliff to crush a mine and drain the sewage is another oddly satisfying payoff. Hidden inside a pile of bad taste. But that's Conker. It never tries to be elegant, and somehow it makes it work. As Conker pushes deeper into his misadventures, the game keeps dialing up the chaos. The tone shifts hard again here, as we leave behind crass barnyard brawls and step into a region full of cat-faced fish, angry machinery, and a furnace boss who fights with fire and testicular trauma. The next section starts with literal cats with fins who hire you to take out a bullfish problem. But it's not as simple as swimming up and fighting him. Instead, the game sends you on a detour through a hidden waterfall path that leads you to an industrial tower. Inside we meet Barry, a vulgar cog who wants you to round up his female gear counterparts. The tone is bitter and aggressive, but not without a sense of bizarre workplace satire. This whole area feels like a pissed-off version of Banjo-Kazooie's mechanical zones. Tight platforming, flame-throwing bat encounters, and precision jumps above large drops.
Fan-f***ing-tastic.
Once you've reunited the cogs, their reunion quickly devolves into violence. It's crude and hostile, but that's the point.
F***ing shite. That's tossed it right up there.
I do declare, ladies, we are free at last to exact our revenge on this evil cog.
The bullfish gets pulled in by a mechanical system you've now powered up, and the catfish, after all that, refuse to pay you properly. It's an ongoing theme. Conker is constantly manipulated, shortchanged, or set up to fail. After chasing the stolen cash into a safe, you thrust into another puzzle involving slingshots and target shooting. What seems like a victory quickly turns into a trapdoor plunge into yet another layer of madness. That's when things go full underwater survival horror. Without the horror, really. You descend into Clang's lair, a series of tunnels patrolled by aggressive mechanical monsters where you have to manage your oxygen and timing to avoid being crushed or drowned. Visually, it's claustrophobic, and mechanically, it's tense, and a little frustrating. And that leads directly to one of the most unforgettable moments in the game, the furnace boss. Before the fight even starts, you get drunk off a keg and urinate on fire demons. The game gives you no time to dwell on how weird that is before it locks you in a boss battle where the only way to win is to literally crush a flaming boiler's testicles. That's not much metaphor here, just raw shock comedy and creative boss mechanics. Once defeated, the way forward is unlocked by rolling one of the boiler's balls into place. That's Conker in a nutshell. Something that sounds like a juvenile joke on paper, but is actually layered with tight design and unexpected polish. The segment ends with the bullfish breaking free and chasing you into a frantic swim. Along the way, he eats all the catfish who shorted you. Maybe the closest thing this game has to justice. If you escape, you're rewarded with a secret stash of money. A rare moment of catharsis, before the game inevitably throws you into this next strange mess. Even the rewards feel backhanded here. It's not just about vulgarity, it's the pacing, the commitment to escalating every scenario, and the way each new area pushes its themes and mechanics just a bit further into the absurd. That's why this remake, even censored, still hits. It preserved the soul of Bad Fur Day, not just the humor, but the variety, the risk-taking, and the chaos you never quite see coming. We return to a dung-filled valley with a new objective. We take the upper path and weaponize a dung ball to blast open the way forward. The beetles aren't hostile now, they're just part of the scenery, lingering while Conker repurposes filth for violence. One detour later and you've pushed a second ball up the lower route. It serves two purposes. It lets you reach another pile of cash and clears the path to the next major area, Pooh Mountain. It's not trying to hide what it is. Inside, a dung beetle warns you about a monster, but it's the environment that sets the tone. Claustrophobic, steaming, alive. And then the voice calls out for sweet corn. What follows is a grotesque version of a fetch quest. Knock the corn unconscious, carry it across a narrow ledge, and throw it into the pit. It's mechanical, sure, but it's also ritualistic. You're feeding something. The corn fights back. The shadows above drop chunks of crap. Every moment is about discomfort, pressure, and anticipation. Then the monster appears. The great and mighty Pooh. A full musical number, a boss made of excrement, while hurling literal crap at you. It should be a punchline, but the game commits. No wink at the camera, no safety net, just fight him with toilet paper, aiming carefully between choruses. It's absurd, but it works, because under the spectacle, the mechanics stay grounded. You dodge, time your throws, push through each phase as the arena fills with more waste. But by the end, he collapses into the background, and you pull the chain. Flushing him isn't the end. It's the transition. You drop into a hidden tunnel full of blade traps and spike mines. There's no song here, just danger. These sequences strip the humor back and replace it with silence and timing. The challenge spikes. Every mistake is a death. And with no one watching, no audience to perform for, Conker is just a figure surviving a trap. Less mascot, more vessel. At the top, two guards block his path. Conker pays them off, plays dumb, and tricks them into letting him through. Then without a word, he whistles and the cash jumps back into his pocket. It's a small moment, but it says everything. This is still his game. In a world full of chaos, filth, and violence, Conker is always in control, until he isn't. Conker's twisted little journey takes another sharp turn as he stumbles into a prehistoric fever dream, where the platforming's more dangerous, the humor gets meaner, and the targets are a parody shift again. The whole section plays like a jab at action-adventure tropes, nightclub culture, and macho absurdity, all while pushing the player through escalating chaos. It starts with a dinosaur chase around a primitive structure. The goal isn't to fight, but to survive. The little raptors are relentless, forcing you to stay light on your feet, and as you climb to the rooftops and grab some cash. But it's not long before things turn theatrical. Conker drops Anvil on a statue, crashing through it, into the next stage of his increasingly deranged quest. Outside the Solid Rock nightclub, you're met with one of the game's most on-the-nose gags. The bouncer won't let Conker in because he's not accompanied by a woman. After some pushing, literally with a stone, you find yourself in a caveman cult. Hatch a baby dinosaur and unknowingly raise it for a ritual sacrifice. It's absurd, mean, and honestly kind of brutal. The whole section toys with the player's emotion. You bond with the dino only to offer it up as a stepping stone, both narratively and literally. That's the tone, nothing sacred, not even the cute sidekicks.
Pleased with your offering.
Once on the idol's head, Conker literally tickles the statue's nose with pepper until it sneezes, launching him deeper into its body. Inside, he steals a ceremonial headdress and assumes the role of a god king. The game leans hard into satire here, mocking blind worship and the ease of manipulation. You lead the loyal Oogas to battle, exploiting their faith to tear down nightclub security. Conker's not a hero, he's just the cleverest jerk in the room. Rock Solid, the club itself, is one of the game's more infamous set pieces. It's loud, crude, and packed with caveman dancers, most of whom are aggressively violent if you bump into them. To progress, Conker uses one of the game's wildest mechanics. He gets drunk and urinates on a dancer to turn them into a boulder, using his stream to push them into place. Yes, really, that's the joke. But it's also another moment that pushes the limits of what a platformer can really get away with, and how far it's willing to go for a punchline. After a few more golden showers and some precision puzzle solving, you finally catch up to Barry, only for her to sprint away, not recognizing Conker in his headdress. You grab the money she leaves behind and exit, only to be pulled into yet another mess. This time you're hired as a mercenary to blow up the locals with a giant bomb. You've got a time limit, no room for error, and a crowd of drunk cavemen trying to stop you. It's frantic, fast-paced, and genuinely stressful.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
Then, just as you escape, you get mugged. This whole arc spirals into one final chaotic set piece, a hoverboard chase where Conker must knock enemies off their rides to reclaim his stolen cash. It's a rare moment of mechanical tension in a game that usually leans on gags, but it still works. The race is fast, difficult, and a reminder that Conker's world isn't just random, it's relentless. The finale takes place in a dinosaur coliseum where you hypnotize a raptor and go full-on monster mode. You eat cavemen, headbutt them into lava, and eventually face down a giant club-wielding brute named Booga the Nut. It's over the top and on purpose. He fights you with shockwaves and swings, but the goal isn't just to beat him, it's to humiliate him. You attack his crotch, bite his ass, and watch as his girlfriend publicly dumps him. Even here, in this primal parody, Conker's tone stays razor sharp. It's never just gross for the sake of it. There's always a sting underneath. Whether it's mocking toxic masculinity, lampooning pop culture, or unpending platformer expectations, this section of the game is pure chaos with a point. And just like that, Conker escapes, with money in hand, and a coliseum in ruins behind him, and the world getting weirder by the minute.
Wakey, wakey, slumberland gone. Oh, you're so cute though.
Hello. I love you.
No, love you no more. Squiffajia chugga, no.
What? No.
Entering this new, spooky area, things shift drastically in tone again. You're immediately faced with those creepy zombie baby dolls again, setting the unsettling vibe right from the start. After making your way through a blood-filled lake, because why wouldn't there be one, you bump into Greg, the Grim Reaper himself, busy trying to take out some pesky catfish. Despite that absurdity, the tone here leans into genuine horror mixed with dark comedy. Greg, being surprisingly helpful, hooks you up with a shotgun and some solid advice. Aim for the head. As you move forward, hordes of undead squirrels start rising from the grave, turning the game into something straight out of a zombie movie. It's a hard, sudden shift into survival horror territory, which feels both shocking and oddly fitting given how wild the game's been so far. After fighting your way through waves of zombies, the path eventually clears, leading you to a Gothic castle. Inside, things take another weird turn. You're turned into a bat by Count Batula. Yeah, a bat. It's quirky, but the gameplay here leans into something unique and oddly charming, where you swoop around the castle, knocking out villagers to feed the Count. It's twisted but playful, perfectly capturing the game's consistent balance of ridiculous and dark. But things never stay lighthearted for long. Once you're back to your normal self, you pick up your shotgun again, blasting zombies and burning bats lurking around the castle. The tension ramps up as you clear out the undead to find keys needed to escape. Navigating through these creepy libraries and dining rooms, it's a solid blend of action and genuine horror moments, especially with the eerie atmosphere the castle provides. Eventually, you manage to unlock your way out and find yourself rolling on a barrel. The pace picks back up as you carefully navigate through tricky paths and finally plunge into the lake of blood, rolling up a steep slope to grab some cash. With one final leap through a waterfall, you're dropped right back to where everything started. Another clever full-circle moment reminding you just how bizarre and interconnected Conker's world really is. And now if all of that wasn't enough, we suddenly find ourselves drafted into a chaotic war. It's an abrupt shift from Conker's previous misadventures. The humor is there, but it's way darker now. Even darker than the zombie area. Underscored by grim moments straight out of war movies. It starts with Conker tasked to clear out the wreckage of a crashed plane, setting explosives with the help of a soldier comically stuck with TNT strapped to him. It's silly on the surface, but there's tension underneath. A reminder that even in the absurdity, there's danger lurking close by. The humor quickly falls away as we're thrown headfirst into a harrowing beach assault. It's a stark contrast that isn't funny anymore. Bullets rain down relentlessly, capturing the brutal chaos of battle in a scene that nods heavily to Saving Private Ryan. Suddenly, Conker's sarcastic demeanor feels like a coping mechanism against real horrors. Making it past the beach, Conker gets thrown into intense firefights against enemy Teddy soldiers. The violence ramps up, confronting us with a barrage of threats from ambushes, laser traps, and waves of relentless foes. The game leans fully into its darker, more mature identity. Still cartoonish, but unflinchingly intense. We find an unexpected ally in Private Rodent, whose titanium armor becomes a literal shield in a storm of violence. There's a surreal emotional mix here, comic absurdity mashed with moments of genuine camaraderie and relief. Things escalate as we pilot a tank through a toxic wasteland, avoiding traps and gunning down threats. The environment itself becomes hostile. It's a stark shift emphasizing the brutality and chaos of war, even within its cartoonish setting. Eventually we meet a seemingly innocent little girl who's shockingly knowledgeable about advanced weaponry. Her presence feels jarringly out of place, but darkly fitting, underscoring how war distorts innocence.
A little girl. Well, it's dangerous around here, little girl. I don't think you want to be here.
Hi, have you come to rescue me?
What is that?
That's the, inverse phase sonar. Very efficient with, oh.
She tasks Conker with taking out submarines, launching missiles. More explosions and more danger, but it feels purposeful. Like we're finally doing something meaningful amid the chaos. But just as the victory seems in reach, we find out what the little girl really is. Attached to her is a giant teddy, starting one of the cooler boss fights in the game.
Familiar with these. Mark II's this time, however. Fair guided. With multiple warheads, of course. Don't fancy your chances very much, Mr. Squirrel.
Once this boss fight is over, the girl activates a self-destruct sequence. Now the urgency spikes dramatically. We frantically race back through deadly corridors, dodging lasers and enemy fire. The tone here is pure panic, intense, heart-pounding, each step feeling like a narrow escape. When we finally break free, there is no fanfare. The chaos subsides quietly. We're left feeling drained but relieved. Sailing homeward, wondering if peace is even possible after the madness we've just survived. Conker's playful charm feels strained now, carrying a heaviness that wasn't there before, a reflection of how deeply the experience has marked us.
Come over here, boy. Come on, look at this.
Yeah. What a terrible thing, you know.
You're right there. All these fine young men sent off to do the dying. For those bigwigs, those pen pushers, those guys who never ever see a single bullet whiz past their heads. We want to get them down here, those so-called generals in their big fancy houses, 20 miles behind enemy lines. Who are they to tell us? Who are they indeed?
We finally reached the windmill. It's trashed. Rodent crash landed right into it. Blew the whole thing apart. Just another piece of Conker's world falling apart. When you drop through the tunnel, you come out the other side to see a broken bridge. And waiting on the other side of it is the Mafia boss. And Barry with him, dressed head to toe in leather, ready for action. Conker doesn't get a choice. He's getting suited up too. And the plan now is to knock over the Federal Reserve Bank. Inside, the game goes full parody. It's all slow-mo dives and gunfire. A straight-shot homage to the Matrix. Conker's in this slick black outfit now. And one detail hits harder than it should. His tail's tucked in. That means no hovering, no float, no lift, just a little hint that things are getting heavier. He's not just playing around anymore. Once you clear the room, Barry flips over the lasers and disables the traps. The doors open, and the two of them head deeper into the vault. For a second, it's almost like the things might turn out alright. You start knocking out all the money and loading them up. $1 million. It's loud and chaotic, but there's a rhythm to it. And then the room locks down. The Panther King's already inside, just sitting there, waiting.
A red squirrel. Good.
Red squirrel. Oh, I think he means me. I don't recognize this guy. Unless he's
The fabled Panther King. But he was just in stories like my mom used to tell me to get me to sleep. Looks like he was real after all.
And behind you, the boss pulls a gun. Barry doesn't even get time to react. He shoots her. Just like that. No build-up. She's just gone. Before anything can settle, the Panther King starts convulsing. Something bursts out of his chest. A full-on alien. A xenomorph. The professor's final move. He launches the vault into space, and now you're trapped, stuck in a mech suit, face to face with the xenomorph. The tone's gone from silly to survival horror to sci-fi throughout the game. There's no more parody here, just you, trying not to die. Every hit counts, and the only way out is to throw this thing into the airlock 3 times.
Airlock open. Air pressure compromised.
And just when you finally get the upper hand, the game freezes. Everything stops. Not metaphorically, literally.
Hello? What's going on? Is this a joke?
The devs forgot to code the ending, so Conker breaks the 4th wall and talks to the programmers. They ask what he wants. He asks for a weapon.
Weapons, maybe?
Let's see now. Yeah.
Not Barry. And with that, it's over. The alien's dead, the room resets, Conker's crowned king. It's quiet now, and too quiet. He's got the power, but none of it means anything. The people around him are just there. Barry's still gone, and Conker doesn't say much, because there's nothing left to say. He warned us at the beginning this was how it ended, and we just didn't take him seriously.
Who'd have thought that?
Conker's Live and Reloaded starts with a hangover and ends with a crown, and in between everything falls apart. What looks like a wild cartoon adventure slowly unravels into something darker, something bitter. At first, it's all laughs and shock value, like the game is just trying to get a rise out of you. But by the end, the joke's over, and the punchline is Conker himself. He stumbles through this world chasing home, then money, then survival. Every time he gets closer to something real, Barry, friends, a way out, it slips away. Or worse, it gets taken. Bit by bit, the game strips him down until he's alone. The cash doesn't matter. The power means nothing. Even the throne feels hollow, because by the time he gets it, there's nobody left to share it with. No one to save, not even a last drink with the girl he loved. And that's the part that hits the hardest. Conker didn't die. He won. He got everything. Riches, respect, a kingdom. But he lost everything that ever meant something. Not because the game was cruel, but because he never stopped to care until it was too late. It's not a tragic ending by accident. It's the whole point. What starts out looking like just another raunchy platformer turns out to be a slow-motion car crash of greed, apathy, and consequence. And when the dust settles, the only one left standing is the guy who traded all back. If he could just remember to ask.
A man of taste. There you go.
So that was Conker Live and Reloaded. We put this one down in the Oddities Room of the Game Vault, a series where we dig into the weird, the unexpected, and the games that never really fit into a clean box. Whether it's an edgy platformer with a gut punch ending or something completely off the wall, this is where those games go. But next up, we're heading to a totally different corner of the vault, the Flash corner. We'll be dragging out one of those chaotic little browser games from our childhood and giving it a proper spotlight. So if you grew up in computer labs playing Flash games instead of doing your homework, you'll want to stick around for this one. Also, we just crossed 700 subscribers, which is wild. We're inching closer to that first 1,000, and I can't thank you all enough for riding along. If you've been lurking or watching from the sidelines, consider subbing, dropping a comment, or even just checking out some of the other stuff from the channel. The Oddities Room playlist is filling up fast, and the horror room seems to be where most of you are hanging out lately. But thanks again for watching, and as always, I'll see you all later.